Hello, friends. It's Chapo.
It's like the money is there. Where else does the money come from? No public wheel. Get the fuck out of here. But the demands, the fucking maw that modern higher education is, all those administrators, all those well-positioned people making six figures and having disproportionate political influence, they got to get fucking paid. And who's left to pay them? FanDuels and fucking DraftKings.
Gambling.
So they will.
I want to get to the the university gambling sponsorships, but just to go back to Qatar for a second, this is just a sort of a statistic that brings into vivid relief what you and Felix were just talking about. Qatar is smaller in total area than Connecticut, and with fewer people than Kansas, easily dwarfed by the 17 countries to previously host the World Cup. There are 3 million people in the country, but only 300,000 of them are Qatari citizens.
Yeah, no, that's known as the Kuwaiti ratio. Kuwait had a similar ratio. I've heard that they've made more people citizens, so I've never confirmed that.
Yeah, back to go for Qatar for a second. And another aspect of this World Cup that's been fun has been the fact that Anheuser-Busch Budweiser sponsored this World Cup for something like, I don't know, $70 million or even, I think it was $700 million for an astonishing amount of money to sponsor this World Cup games. And Qatar has banned the sale of alcohol in the stadiums, which has led, I think, to some, this World Cup has already had its own "Let's Go Brandon" moment. Did you guys see this?
No.
This was during the Ecuador match against Qatar, which they won, and the Ecuadorian fans in the stands were chanting "Queremos cerveza," and the Fox broadcast said that they were chanting "Sí se puede." Did you see weird Mike Cernovich saying that he supports the banning of
course
alcohol
he does.
sales?
Just convert, Mike.
Matt,
Come
once
on.
again, you were totally. He is but a few words away from just saying the words.
He's going to say the
There is
words.
no God but God. Yep. There is no God but God. Wahhabism, it's just come on
It's
in.
coming,
the water
folks.
is fine.
The Jordan Peterson's going to be, I think, the last holdout, but it's ticking clock.
We were also treated to, I don't know, like some great videos of some of the fans in Qatar, including some of the English supporters hanging out with like being entreated to like palaces filled with lions.
Yeah, last night we met one of the Sheikh's sons, and he took us back to the palace and he showed us he had lions and everything.
Basically, we were obviously on a bit of a hunt for some beers, and he was like, yeah, we saw beers, so we jumped into the back of his Toyota Land Cruiser, ended up at a big palace, and we were in the back. He showed us his monkeys, his exotic birds.
And they're just on a hunt for some beers, and they end up in a palace with a lion. So right on to the Scousers in Qatar right now.
My favorite thing, like sort of linguistic trick that we've seen around this is you saw the start of this a little bit in Brazil when people criticized Bolsonaro for clearing out the rainforest, where very right-wing or authoritarian, or in this case feudal nations adopt almost like Maoist English to defend themselves, where these like hard right or countries literally ruled by an emir will, if you criticize any practice they have, will start talking about like periphery nations and it just to, like sound like there's someone from like the Marxism listserv in 1993. I saw Robbie Williams. People criticized him for going, and some Qatari elements defended him by pointing out like, oh, he's English, colonialism's bad, which certainly there's in a morally rigid world, England or America for that matter has no room to morally criticize Qatar, I'm sure. And Robbie Williams, as an aside, he said, if I couldn't perform anywhere where there are human rights abuses, I couldn't perform in my kitchen, which raises more questions than it answers. But I think that defense is always so interesting to me, where they start talking about like colonialism and neo-colonialism and sometimes even like mental colonialism, because all of these countries, they're all part of the GCC, NATO, Council for Foreign Relations blob. Like they're all like Just because you talk about colonialism, you're still part of that thing. You still are partners with America. There's still an American military base here. You still shared goals with American intelligence in Syria. What kind of fucking defense is this? It's the same thing with Bolsonaro talking in that way when, you know, his presidency was literally given to him by the American justice system.
See, but here's where culture war gets to play its role, because how do you make sense of this? Like, you're part of this Borg that you're defending, that you're saying you're being oppressed by. How are you being oppressed when you're a part of it? Culturally, like the global homo is imposing this behavioral standard on you. And then you get to, even though you're part of this machine and you're a monstrous thugocracy that just has no real democracy, any of the things that you claim to respect, it at least holds on to a vision of like social order that is, you know, based on coercion. And that is the promise to the extraction capital that is seeing like the total end liquefaction of, you know, the economy of the world system under capitalism. The ones that are freaking out about it are the ones who are scared, not about becoming, you know, rich guys in a bubble surrounded by robots. That's fine. But by being gay in the bubble, by having their vital essence and sense of self being destroyed from within by the decadence of idleness.
That, you know what, it's like if a guy with a based Twitter account, if people found out that he worked for like Facebook or George Soros, and to defend himself, he said, well, you know, in coercive capitalism, I have to work within this system. I have to work within, you know, the global homo neoliberal whatever system, but it doesn't matter because I'm retaining my cultural basedness.
Yes, exactly.
It's a blown up version of that.
All the Groypers and all the American right wing are going to gravitate towards a vision of society that is basically a Gulf monarchy. Like that is their vision of, because what is the model? It is hyper techno libertarianism, right? No taxes at all. Basically free God citizens who would reign over people without fucking citizenship at all, under a civic code that applies to all of them, but of course only really applies to those who don't have the money to have their own private indulgences, the way that the aristocrats used to be, and the way that you can maintain a coherent society even in the bubble, the thing that they're afraid of losing through decadence. And so they're all going to adhere to that vision. Like, the big hump is going to get them to accept Islam, but I think it's inevitable, as we're seeing at the fringes. And that's like the thing that aligns every facet of capital that is like imagining itself in insurgent resistance to globo homo. Like, that is the vision they're in their heart, even if they don't know it, that they're moving towards.
Well, I said I wanted to return to this, but as long as we're talking about capitalism, sports, and decadence, I do want to briefly mention this New York Times article from over the weekend, headline, How Colleges and Sports Betting Companies Caesarized College Life in order to reap millions of dollars in fees.